Hi, I'm Cindy Gamboa. I'm the project coordinator for the Healthy Environments Partnership, and I'm also the storyteller for the Southwest Detroit community, which is predominantly Hispanic.
Hello, I'm Kanya Wright, and I'm a librarian by trade and a storyteller by desire. I was the storyteller selected to tell the stories in Northwest Detroit and on the East Side.
We use storytelling as an intervention to kind of convey two key themes, which was increasing problem-solving skills and also increasing social support strategies.
Storytelling was seen as a tool that could carry an important message, deliver it in a relaxed and hopefully joyful atmosphere, and stories can be remembered. Often when traditional cultural groups were sharing things with children, young people, in terms of learning, they put it in a story. I'm sure many of you can remember the stories of your childhood. You remember it. You remember what happens to the character. You remember some of the good things they do and some of the bad things they do. And so stories was a wonderful vehicle to bring the concerns that you had for your participants.
One of the really important tasks was actually trying to find a story that would fit with our themes. We knew that we wanted to get stories that were actually addressing our certain themes, so we spent hours reviewing stories, which was really fun.
Yes.
Really fun. We heard a lot of great stories from Kanya, which brought a lot to the table.
And it also, not only was it fun, as a librarian, one of the most favorite things that we get to do is read stories or tell stories to children and adults. And being able to research and send the stories to you to look at and to get another perspective, because what happens is you begin to think of your own perspective, your life experiences, and those of the audiences that you usually play to. All of a sudden I had a whole new opportunity to look at it from a research point of view. Adults who were concerned about their health, adults who were involved in their own social development in terms of asking for help, staying healthy, and making new habits. So I got an opportunity to look at some of the stories that I used. Some of them were okay. Some of them tended to carry confounded or maybe hidden messages that we decided we didn't want to use. A lot of the stories are older stories and sometimes possibly not politically correct.
Well, it depends on our audiences. Our audiences were very different.
Right.
We had three very diverse communities. For example, Southwest Detroit had a very diverse culture. We are predominantly Hispanic. So one of the most obvious way that we tailored the stories was to deliver the stories in Spanish.
Right.
This was so that the participants can follow along. We also use characters that are familiar, traditions, ingredients. So kind of tailoring it to your audience so that they can follow along with things that are known to them were very important to us. So
you're absolutely correct.
You know, an interpretation might be different if they are familiar with the themes and what it is that we're trying to convey.
And this story is to remind us that problem solving sometimes is best done in a group. One clear and bright day, you could see forever. A dark cloud of ravens could just be spotted on the horizon. The lead raven in front was being driven by instinct. And he knew by the way the sun was tilting in the sky that it was soon time for them to find a place where they could eat and drink, because they had flown for what's been known in some cultures as far as the crow flies. And so he looked around and he spotted a small ravine where it appeared to be lush green tender shoots. And there was a large cistern of cool water sitting nearby. The lead raven pulled his head up, tilted his wings, and banked gracefully toward a landing. All followed. Once they landed, they began to eat to their heart's desire, filling up on small golden grains of grass, filling up on corn that was a nearby farmer's pride and joy. Oh, you could just hear them for miles around in a comfortable, contented and everything was right with their world. Well, after filling their bellies, feathered bellies full, they decided that they needed a cool drink. The lead raven, as it was known to be in pecking order, hopped up on the cistern first and lowered his blue-black beak into the water. Ah! He was just this far from getting a cool drink. He hopped down. He walked around the cistern and looked. He came back around the other way and he jumped back up on the ridge and placed his beak down to take a sip of water. Ah! He was still this far from getting a cool drink. He hopped back down on the ground and the three next important ravens stepped up and they began to peck as hard as they could against the side of the vessel, hoping that they would break it and the water would run freely. You and I know that wouldn't have worked because the thirsty ground would have drank it up before they had even gotten a good swallow. Well, the next tier of decision makers came up and they noticed from the tree above one leaf had fallen gently down upon the top of the water and laid on the surface. They had an idea. Several of them flew up to the tree and plucked leaves and came down and dropped them into the water and watched. Nothing happened. Well, as time continued to go by, the different sets of ravens approached the vessel. One tiny raven who had been way to the back and not necessarily having much rank in the flock was sitting by a small hill of pebbles. He carefully picked a pebble up in his beak and he made his way through, hopped right up on the rim before any other raven could stop him, and dropped the pebble into the water. All eyes that had a bird's eye view noticed that the water had rose up one tiny bit. Ah! A solution! Each raven in turn went and found a pebble, came back and carefully dropped their pebble into the vessel, bringing the level of the water up high enough so that each raven was able to drink his or her fill. Oh, what a wonderful, sweet taste of the water. And the tiny little raven, who had been all the way to the back of the flock, was kind of pushed up along. And they gave him their deference and thanked him, because who would have thought that such a tiny raven at the back of the flock would have come up with the solution? And so we remember that when we're problem solving, we all should share in the work of problem solving, because we never know who the tiny little raven at the back of our flock is. Asante Sana, my words come out of my mouth into the air and into your hearts. Thank you.